welcome to edition 77, part 2 of All Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing them in prison.
Yes, this is... Oh, hold on, Rachel. Have you got 2 hats on over your headphones?
I've got a hat on and my phone is a little bit further away, but I'm speaking louder.
Okay, fine, yeah.
Look, I'll put one more hat on. It's just that it's a bit hot in here, but I'll get it. One sec. Was it all right last time?
Yeah, it's great. It's great when you've got a couple of hats on. And this sounds like an absolute wind-up, but I promise it works.
There we go. 2 hats there. There we go.
All
Nice
2 hats Fairburn. But didn't you get killed by the craze?
I think I did, yeah. I can't remember what we were talking about. We got distracted by 2 hats.
We got distracted by... So, to explain to people listening, Rachel's got AirPods because she's on telly now, and she doesn't know how to turn the volume down in them. It's a bit complicated. So what we do when we record it, because sometimes it echoes, is we make Rachel record the podcast sat in a bedroom with 2 hats on.
One of which is a legend hat.
Of course.
And one of which is a Walthamstow Football Club hat. Joining in with the local area.
Constantly repping the brand of either your area or your own podcast. Can I ask how I saw you got a life drawing class, right?
No. See, right, I'm obsessed with Etsy. And I don't know how this has happened.
You are so late to the party on this. I've been telling you about Etsy for ages.
Listen, I'm sure I used to look at Etsy and it used to be like one person making a fucking, I don't know, an earring out of dog shit or something. It used to be crap. Either that or I've become kinder and my tastes have changed. Now, I am obsessed with it. There's all kinds of people on there, isn't there? It really is the kaleidoscope of life. I bought a soulmate drawing. I was like, this some bonkers bird on there giving drawing, like £8. I'll draw your soulmate and all this. Which I don't believe. I think it's all nonsense. But I was kind of like, let's have a go at that. Anyway, I clicked the wrong button and I got a drawing of an attractive woman.
Maybe you didn't click the wrong button. Maybe
that is my soulmate.
The heart wants what the heart wants. And you were like, oh no, I've clicked a woman. And I could see you. God, imagine if you and that drawing got together, what a hot lesbian power couple you'd be.
I don't know if I'd be able to have a relationship with a woman. Well, I wouldn't for a start, because I'm pretty much a heterosexual woman, but I don't know, I think it'd be too easy, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? It'd be like...
Yeah, there's something about being respected that sounds very stressful.
Yeah, I think it'd just be quite chilled out. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I'd be able to get... Do you know, something I've noticed about myself, because I haven't been home for a while, well, over a year now, whenever I've been speaking to one of my mates back home, the amount of times I say, do you know what I mean, is incredible. I've just noticed it today, especially. I've said it about 4 times. Anytime I have a conversation with my Manchester friends, when something just comes back out. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Fucking hell.
Maybe you just really want to make sure that people understand what you're saying.
Well, there is that. I do have to hammer that home quite often. Anyway, the soulmate drawing came through and I was like, look, this is nothing, this. But then I did an online tarot reading, which, was the biggest load of dog shit I'd ever heard in my life. One thing I'm happy about is my career, and it was like, you're not very happy in your career. It's like, oh, here we go. You're going to Darren Brown me, are you? I just love it though, Etsy. There's all kinds of stuff on there, isn't there? I've bought so much cool stuff. I've got my eye on a jacket that's too expensive though, £300. Come on, mate. Second-hand clothes, you're taking the piss. You need to have a word with yourself about that.
I think we're quite similar, Rachel, in that we're like a little independent business. And, speaking of which, there's a group on Instagram called Made by Legends, which is a load of small businesses owned and run by people who listen to this podcast, and they had like a virtual fair the other day, so I was sort of like popping in and out on Instagram, just having a little nose basically. Also, I'm trying to not buy stuff, so I was trying not to look at it, and then I saw a pair of earrings and I sent them to my partner. I screen grabbed them and sent them, and I went, the ones I sent to you. And
the cool man.
Yeah, I said, can you please talk me out of buying these? And he sent me a message back going, why would I talk you out of buying the best earrings I've ever seen in my life? I said, it's daft. I shouldn't be spending money on stuff like that. And then he was like, about 5 minutes later, he's like, right, they should arrive in the post by this date. And I was like, no, I wasn't saying that to you for you to buy them. And he was like, you can't show me them and then expect me to live in a world without them in my life. So... I've now got a pair of legend earrings on the way. So, yes.
So now he's left you for a pair of earrings, is what you're trying to say?
So, yeah, when I walked in this morning, got in, he put one of them down the end of his willy hole.
I tell you what, we've had some chatter at the beginning of this. Anyone hate listening to this is going to be really getting off on this.
I wonder if people do hate listen to this.
Of course they do, yeah. Don't bother me.
You hate listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't. I really can't bring myself to do it.
I find it's, I've had to stop hate listening to one because it's just, it's jumped the shark now. It's just gone, it really has gone beyond the pale. But I do hate listening to podcasts because obviously, I think a lot of my material in stand-up is me being peeved about stuff. I think I'm at my best when I'm peeved. And it's really good to get me peeved so I can write material. So it is good in that respect. But yeah, I've had to stop hate listening to one of them because fucking hell. It really has. It's started to embarrass me.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't want to be embarrassed. I want to be angry.
Fair. Oh yeah, so I think you and I are similar. We both like small businesses and a little touch of vintage. But my love of vintage comes from charity shops and finding a bargain. So I cannot tell you how much I resent someone taking a dress that I can tell with one look stinks of someone else's sweat.
Yeah.
And trying to charge me 80 quid for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want this because I want to pay a lot of money for it. I want it to be sustainable and affordable and looks fucking cool unless people are less likely to have it. But, I'm not going to be robbed blind from something that would be on the pound sale rail in a local Bernardo's. It fucking winds me up.
Yeah. There's got to be... They need to find a balance, don't they? And I tell you what it is. It's the middle classes appropriating charity shopping. That's what it is.
Do you think so?
Of course it is. You see them walking around in these fucking sports jumpers, an Adidas jumper and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, look at you, going back to your three-storey house in Kensington, are you? Don't get me started on it. Anyway, we must get on with it, I would say. That's what we need to do.
Whoops.
10 minutes there. Yeah, someone hate listening to this is going to be like, everyone hate them. But other people hate listening to stuff, don't they? They must do.
I think it's just you. Truly.
Is it just me? But the problem is I hate listen to stuff, but then other people hate the thing that I listen to and then ask for updates on the thing that I'm hate listening to, so they don't have to do it. It's like I'm...
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Some sort of... I don't know.
You're doing the Lord's work.
I am, actually, yeah. Anyway, Rodney Alcala.
Yes. So, Rodney Alcala has just left prison for the first time on parole. Mm-hmm. But due to that indeterminate sentencing thing that was going on in the 70s, the 70s was fucking wild. I love some of the music, but to me, when I think of the 70s, I think of obviously hippies, but also that permeating through the culture and them just being like, yeah, let dangerous prisoners go, wank off a dolphin in the name of science. That's the kind of stuff that I think of. Yeah, let's give LSD to kids or... Yeah.
This sentence is indeterminate sentencing thing. It seemed like the prisoner could say, yeah, I'm all right. I'm not going to do it again. And they go, all right, off you go. So he was paroled just after 2 years, wasn't it? Mm. And less than 2 months after he was released, he attacks another girl, a 13-year-old girl known as Julie J, who he offered to give her what she thought was a lift to school.
Mm-hmm. So 1974, he gives this 13-year-old Julie J. It's so funny that they've gone for Julie J. Doesn't she sound like... Oh, you got Julie S, you got Julie J, and you got Julie K, but Julie K doesn't work on this floor. Yeah. But she does come up here to have her lunches, so that's why I need to know about Julie K.
That's exactly what it is, isn't it? When I worked at Kendall's, House of Fraser, as it is now, I worked with two other Rachels. There was Rachel R and tall, big Rach. I was little Rach.
You want to be little Rach, don't you?
You don't want to be Big Rach.
Imagine
big
if you were Big Rach. Fucking hell, how small would the other one be?
Yeah. Baby Rach. This is Baby Rach. She's 4 months old. She's going to be working in the stock room. Big Rach was a fucking nut job. She was tall. That's why she was called Big Rach. I remember her bosom was just above my eye level. And I remember when she said... They're the same age as me, these girls. Big Rach once said, oh, yeah, it's really sad because, got to go to a party tonight because my friend's leaving. She's leaving to go to Spain. So it's my last night with her, so I've just asked if I can finish early. I was like, oh, you never mentioned she was moving. She went, she's not moving, she's just going for 10 days. I was like, wow, you really are an idiot, aren't you?
Oh, that's great.
Anyway, Julie J.
Julie J. So it's a 13-year-old. So he basically he's trying to get her stoned, is giving her weed, and then tries to kidnap her, but gets caught, basically. So then he goes to court and is then immediately, because it's a parole violation, he's incarcerated from 1974 to 1977 for her abduction. And then when he leaves prison in 1977, he leaves California and he goes straight to New York. Because this is something that he and a lot of other criminals at the time did, is you could just jump states and sort of have a clean slate. And it felt like it's much easier to have a false name.
Yeah.
Although I think it's quite easy to have a false name now. Like, so we know so many people in comedy who've got fake names.
Yeah.
You know, stage names that you don't realise. You know, are actually something less exciting. Some of them you could tell, you know, when people are called, like, Hovis Presley, you're like, that's probably not his Christian name.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like Jack Russell, that 90s thing of giving yourself, like, a pun name, like Oliver Double, Jack Russell. Who else has got one like that? Incognito.
Yeah,
that was there was sort of a style of comedy where people had these sort of pun names. And I guess it was an equity thing as well. But there's quite a lot of people who have, like, false names in comedy, I think, to make themselves sound more exciting.
I mean, also, I think a lot of people do it because a surprising amount of comedians are teachers as well, so they just change their names to something, you know, so not Googleable. I kind of wish I'd have changed my name, you know. I was going to change it to I might have said this before, my dad's name, Tony Fairburn. But I don't know, I kind of wish I hadn't had it, because we're so far into stand-up, it's like, if anything went to shit, I'd have to change my name to get a job, I reckon.
Yeah.
Because you're too Googleable, aren't you? And that it's like, what's that law, the right to be forgotten?
Yes, that's only new.
You'd have to really go for it, wouldn't you? You can use middle names as well, can't you?
Yeah, well, you know, I use a name for a lot of my post that's different. Because do you know what it is? This is some of the reason is because my name is so distinct. If I buy something from someone I like, sometimes they send me free stuff. And I don't want them to do that because it's usually small businesses. So I'll try and, like, incognito send another name on it that kind of nothing to do with my name at all. And then you just get what everyone else would get.
Yes. And having said that, I mean, I've got enough middle names to fucking be 3 different people, I think. So that's all right. So his parole officer allows him to fly to New York, even though it was a risk and there was the potential that he could basically bugger off and, you know, they'd never see him again. So a week after he arrived in New York, he killed Ellen Jane Hover, who was 23 years old, and she was the daughter of a nightclub owner, Ciro's nightclub. She was the goddaughter of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. as well. I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised that the mafia didn't get involved in this, because this sounds like it's got all the makings of it, hasn't it?
Yeah, Ellen was very well loved. She's only 23, but she's a very clever girl, very confident, very pretty. She lived alone on 3rd Avenue in Manhattan and actually was a fledgling comedy writer who was working as a sort of researcher at the time. Her roommate, who was in college with her, she studied biology in college, said she was very sweet, and considering how kind of famous, I guess, the people around her were because of this nightclub and how wealthy she wasn't spoiled at all and just loved playing the piano. And apparently men always fancied her. Apparently she'd really catch people's eye. And unfortunately she caught the eye of the wrong person. Now, when she went missing was about the time of Son of Sam as well. So there was a little while where they thought that she could have been a victim of Son of Sam.
Yes, it was just at the right time. Her remains were found 11 months later on the Rockefeller estate. Now, horrible, but she was found in several places. It could have been Rodney Alcala that did that, or it could have been animals. Just really horrible situation. I mean, 11 months later is horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, by that time it was skeletal remains as well. So, yeah, just that kind of thing of, like, trying to identify the body in those circumstances is just an extra grimness to it. And, yeah, I just can't imagine the feeling of a family having a 23-year-old daughter and then just disappearing, and then a year later, the very worst thing being confirmed. It's just incredibly, incredibly sad. Now then, technically, his next crime is in November of that year, but I am confident that he is killing people far more regularly than that. Any time that there's a time gap in this, I think it's just a victim that we don't know about, and we'll talk about why that is more in part 3.
We have to say as well, he worked for a short time at the... When someone says he worked for a short time, I think he probably did about 2 days at this. At the LA Times as a typesetter, and he was actually interviewed by the Hillside Strangler Task Force because he was a known sex offender. So Hillside Stranglers, we've never done those as a podcast. That could be... I don't really know much
yeah,
about them, to be honest. It's one of the ones that I haven't got a clue about them.
Also, imagine living around this time where you've got Son of Sam, Hillside Stranglers, Rodney Alcala. Like, it's such a fucking dangerous time to be just alive and in that area. And, like, there just was a real sort of, like...
And they're just the ones you know about.
Yeah, exactly.
Golden State Killer, he was at it then, wasn't he?
Oh, shit, yeah. All through, basically, the 70s feels like a very dangerous time to be alive, and not just because they were like, yeah, put a seatbelt on if you want, but, like, all the other stuff as well. So Jill Barkham, in 1977, about November the 10th, she's only 18 years old. Now, she gets found in the hills. She'd been sexually assaulted and bludgeoned and then strangled with her trousers. So this is his MO, basically. Mm-hmm. He would rape these women, they would be hit with something blunt, and then they would be strangled with usually an item of their own clothing. They assumed that she was a victim of the Hillside Stranglers until 2005, so very recently, and DNA exonerated them, and they were like, oh no, this is Rodney Alcala's DNA on it. So Jill grew up, she was one of 11 kids. Mm-hmm. She's very sort of free-spirited, very well loved in her family. Apparently there's this story about when her brother says, I'd get told off for eating spinach and then spitting it out because it tasted horrible, and my parents would go and stand by the fridge for 5 minutes and have like a timeout, and she as a little girl would go and stand next to him and put her arm around him for the entire time that he was like being told off, and then they would go off together when he was sort of like set free from standing by the fridge. So very sweet girl. She was, like I say, free-spirited, so she moved to California on her own and was meant to be very pretty, very petite as well, like tiny, and, you know, like not much of her in terms of like didn't weigh very much. Mm-hmm. So as an 18-year-old who's very petite, you know, you just wonder, like, is that one of the reasons she was targeted? Because she's easy to, or potentially easier to attack, really. Just stuff like that. As soon as it's weird, isn't it, when you read about these and you see a tiny little detail about someone, you know, when they're like, everyone's like, about Ellen, they're like, oh God, men are always attracted to her. And you're like, shit, is that why he went for her? And then just reading about Jill, and then you're like, oh, she's very petite. And you're like, fuck, is that literally so he could, like, you know, overpower her? It's really sad, isn't it, that, like, details about people become the things that you think was that to do with their untimely passing, and not to victim blame, obviously, but it's just really sad, I think.
Well, speaking as a small woman, I have noticed that sometimes if I'm out a bit later or doing whatever, if I'm on my own, I purposefully try and make myself look bigger, like taller.
Really?
Yeah. I've noticed that quite a lot. Like I really straighten up and I sort of, I don't know, walk a bit more confidently, so I seem bigger. Because I do sometimes feel quite, being small, quite vulnerable. I think people forget as well, I mean, you probably get this, that when you are small, you know, very below average height, you know, you realise you see the world in a totally different way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So my partner's so tall, he's about 6'2", 6'3". So he'll be like, oh, look at that. And it'll be a hedge that I have to climb up the hedge to see over.
Yeah.
And then you just realise, like, God, the world is completely different. And sometimes he'll be like, look at that or whatever, and I'm like, I can't see it. I was like, where is it? And he'll have to bend down to like my level to point. And he'll be like, God, it's weird down here.
Yeah.
And if I like stand up on a stool, I'm like, ugh, isn't it horrible and weird up here? But that's his life, up on a stool.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Like I probably see the world from, everyone's a big rage to me. I just see, I'm constantly at boob height. Even when I'm on a train, for example, people's luggage is in my way more than anyone else's because it's nearly as big as me. Do you know what I mean? Like, these sort of little things. But then again, you know, I can fit into a small seat on a plane and be quite happy and stretch my legs. So there are benefits to it. But yeah, I definitely do make myself, if I'm on my own, maybe late at night on the tube or whatever, I do kind of make myself look subconsciously, but I have noticed, make myself look bigger. I mean, it doesn't work, but
you know, we've done a lovely metaphor there about not being able to see. You know, you see the world as little Rach, and tall people see it and they don't realise that it's something else. Lovely metaphor for privilege, Rachel. Lovely metaphor for privilege.
Well, thank you very much.
But the thing is with me is that I never feel small, and I think people are surprised how short I am when they meet me, because I think I've got the energy of a far taller, more aggressive woman. Also, I'm like, I weirdly I never feel like my height, even though I'm not much taller than you. I don't. Well, how tall are you again? 5'1"?
Maximum of 5 foot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I've got a good 3.5 inches on you, so I am definitely still small. But I do you know what? I trust my weight, and this isn't a fat thing. But I am so dense, I feel like I should be on the periodic table in a special column of my own. I've always, like, weighed fucking... Even when I was, like, there was nothing on me as a kid and I was doing judo all the time, I had to be weighed constantly. And they used to always be like, step on there again. I think my bones are made from lead or something. I just weigh loads. I'm just dense, basically. So part of me is like, yeah, you just fucking try and abduct me, mate. You'll give yourself a hernia. And also, like, I've got a scowl like no other. Obviously, I'll be quite scared if there's a group of sort of, like, teens and I'm on my own, so I'll just put my scowl on. And I've seen them, like, part the seas when I'm walking towards them because I look fucking terrifying. I just think I look like a woman who's potentially lost everything, and they're the ones you don't want to mess with.
Well, this is why when men go, oh, cheer up, it might never happen, it's like, you know what, the reason I look furious is because I'm out and I don't want you to talk to me and I'm thinking about getting around safely. That's why I look pretty serious, mate. That's why I'm not smiling.
When they do that cheer up, it'll never happen. You just want to fucking shout rape statistics at them. Be like, it has, and there's rarely a successful conviction.
I mean, I've said I don't mind a bit of bants, you know, but it's just not very original, is it?
Well, this is the thing, is like, I'm surrounded by funny people for a living, so rarely does someone shout something on the street that I think, that was funny.
Yeah, exactly, like, that's it, isn't it? Up your game. Be more original.
So, his next victim is December 16th.
Oh, we must say at this time, though, he is convincing people that he's a professional photographer. And he is taking photographs of women in various states, because he's saying, I mean states as in what they're wearing, not states as in America. He's taking photographs of them, he's saying he's professional photographer, easy for me to say. And he is picking probably, you know, very young, vulnerable women and duping them and getting to take pictures of them in various states of undress and different scenarios. And this is important because later on there's quite a lot found, and there's a lot of women that we don't know who they are in the photographs.
Yeah, that becomes a huge part of the case that we'll probably get to in part 3. But yeah, totally. And it's just that it's quite dark, that the whole, like, I've seen it as well, like, you know, man carrying camera goes, "You're so pretty, have you thought about modelling?" And, you know, however empowered you are, everyone likes to be told they're pretty. So, excuse me, I'm just getting yawn. Can I just say that considering I got in at like 3 last night and we were recording this podcast at 8 o'clock in the morning, yawn-wise, I'm doing really fucking well.
You are actually. There's only been 2, I think.
Oh, I didn't know you were fucking making a tally chart the other side of this call.
I just...
Good to know.
No, it's just one of those things, you know, I can't get out of this, can I? Carry on.
Yeah, so that, you know, that thing, they did it a while, it was basically a pyramid scheme, where, you know, people would approach people on the street and go, "Oh my God, do you want to do some modelling shots?" And then the girls would go into a studio and then have to pay. And it was like, yeah, so you can use this for your modelling portfolio. And they all had that picture, I think we've spoken about it before, where they're in a hoop, backlit, with their leg up in the big plastic circle. They look like they're sat in a polo mint.
Yes.
And they also have someone doing their makeup, and they look absolutely fucking terrible because the makeup's done really badly.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's these modelling shots that everyone has done. So that, you know, there's a history of that, of like approaching someone and telling them they could be a model. And so I think that's how he was getting girls in, and often he would arrange to go to their apartments. So they're letting in this stranger who would then attack them. That was another one of his MOs. And yeah, it's just a real sort of like quite a clever way to do it, in that it'd be the kind of appointment that you would make quietly as well, because you'd be like, "Oh God, I don't want to tell people that I'm modelling in case nothing comes of it or he doesn't turn up." So it would be a reason that people wouldn't be telling everyone about it and be like, "Oh, he's just going to come over and take some pictures, and if I don't like him, it's fine." And that being sort of the perfect way to get women on their own and in a vulnerable position. It's really dark.
It is dark. I mean, but the thing is as well, I mean, taking advantage of women like that is awful. But even if a woman in those days was having a legit modelling portfolio made, they would keep it quiet, which is like the fucking reverse of these days. When are some women and men going to learn that you're not a model? Just because you take your picture and put it on Instagram, I'm sorry, have some fun. This is the problem now. People think they can be and do anything. I've seen people on Instagram going for modelling work, and I'm like, what the fuck are you modelling? And I'm sorry, like, I just think people need to be fucking realistic about things. Do you know what I mean? Be fucking realistic. Everyone's a model now.
Well, weirdly, yes. I obviously am no great oil painting, and also because I've always been, obviously when I look back now I was like, God, I wish I was as fat as I thought I was, but I've never been thin, and then you're taught growing up that the only way to be attractive is to be thin, so I would never have fallen, I think, for those people approaching me on the street, because I would have thought it was much more likely to be a boy playing a trick and going, what, you think I'd ask you? You think you could be a model? Like in school when someone wolf whistles and you turn around just because it's a noise you turn around to, and they're like, why the fuck would you think that was about you, you ugly bitch? And you're like, I want to die. I don't think I'd have fallen for it, but fuck me, yeah, you're so right. So many people have fallen for that. And now, I think Instagram, because you can filter and kind of curate how you look, I think some people feel like they're living sort of a model lifestyle. And that's fine if that's what you want.
I think there's a generation, particularly of young women, that as much as people think we're empowered and we're this, that and the other, there's the generation even more so that are absolutely self-absorbed and obsessed with how they appear. And I think it's like, yeah, fair enough, do what you want, but there is more to life than thinking that you're something that you're not. And I just think it's really fucking tragic. And you just look at these things and you're like, is this, like, what is, please, like, what is wrong with you that you, what are you, sometimes I'm like, what are you seeing that no one else is? And I know that sounds really fucking harsh. So there's two things going on, in my opinion. Some people have just been given too much confidence, right, and are using it and going like, I'm a model. It's like, you're not, babe, right? You are not a fucking model, right? The problem is Love Island and shit like this. Everyone thinks they can be a celebrity or be what they want to be because people have been instilled with, you know, all these positive things throughout their lives. Like, yeah, you can do whatever you want, but you fucking can't, actually. You can't. You have to be realistic about your limitations. Like, you have to be realistic. And you have to think, what do you really want to do? Like, it is sad when you see these people like, oh yeah, I'm a model, I'm this, that, and the other. It's like, but you're not.
But the sadness to me comes from the fact that, not that they want to do that or think they are, the sadness to me comes from that's the only thing they think they can be, or the thing that they think will lead to them having a good quality of life. And that's sad because obviously, like, what we look like is the one thing that we know will change and will deteriorate. Whereas, like, you know, our brains, God willing, hopefully will be with us for a good old 60 years of our adult life, firing on all cylinders. Whereas, like, your face is gonna look worse. That's just a fact. Your face will look worse as you get older. It just will lose the things that we see as being attractive and valuing in society. So putting your eggs in one sort of 15-year window to me is very sad. But that's because, you know, so many women are taught, especially those who aren't like given a massive focus on education or mainstream education doesn't suit them. They're sort of taught, right, well, it's what you look like. It's your tits or your face or your body or whatever. That's what people want and will want you for. And obviously there's nothing wrong with that, but when it leads to sort of chasing a kind of aspirational, really competitive, really difficult way to make a living, also that's, if it is Love Island stuff, it's built on a fleeting 6 months of opening nightclubs and then being totally forgotten. I just think it's very hard for some people. There was a girl I mentored who was like, I want to be a model. And I was like, okay. And she sort of wanted to do performing arts stuff because I think she thought it would make her more like competitive for reality programmes. It was just quite sad to me because she wasn't very academic and I wasn't like, ooh, put it in a circus. She's not like terrifying looking, but she's not what you would stereotypically think was a model. But she thought that was kind of the only thing that she could do to have a nice life. And that's what makes me really sad.
And what I will say is, if anyone fucking asks me to read me the ins and outs of a cat's ass about the psychology behind what I'm saying, please don't, because what I am talking about is a very specific type of thing. I'm talking about delusion, which some people are just deluded. It happens. I mean, look at some men in comedy. Some people are just deluded, and some people see something that other people don't. It's like me having body dysmorphia. It's like some people have got the fucking reverse of that. Like, they're seeing something. And that's the thing. It's like, the other problem is people have been told you're the best, you can do whatever you want to be, you're beautiful, you're clever, you're hilarious. And it's like, none of these things are true for some people, unfortunately. And because they've been bigged up so much, and they have been... So there's two sort of separate things going on. There's people who've been pummeled with low self-esteem and people that are sucking up too much high self-esteem and don't know their limitations. Some people don't know the potential, and some people don't know the limitations. And we're just seeing this all the time all over social media. But please, do not at me. I don't need... Because I just know what's going to happen to me. Actually, I think you'll find it's just a fucking opinion. Don't at me. If you do, I will just block you. Anyway.
Oh, and don't do what some people do and go, can you pass this on to Rachel and message me about it?
Yeah. Can I... In fact, I want to address this. There is,
what have I done?
In my opinion, when somebody messages you to talk about something I've said, it reeks of classism. That is what it does. Yeah. It reeks of it. It's like, you don't know how to interact with me as a working class woman, do you? You don't know how to interact with me. And if you're so sure of your opinion that you're right, contact me directly. Kiri's not my mum. And if she was my mum, she'd tell you to fuck off anyway. Have a little think about why you wouldn't approach me, and have a think of why you'd approach Kiri. Have a little think about the underlying things that you genuinely think about me. Is it because I sound like this that you doubt my intelligence and I won't be able to understand what I've said and what you think? Just have a little think about that. And that's my sermon for the day. And it's out there. And I feel fucking cleansed.
I agree with you. I also think that some people are labouring under the misapprehension that because you tell it like it is, that I am the easier to approach one, when actually I am probably more vitriolic than you. I just keep it to our WhatsApp. Yeah. And I'm far quicker to block people because I'm like, absolutely not. My boundaries, I just don't say them online because what is the fucking point?
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of the time when someone wants to have a conversation with me about something, it's fine. Like, I'm open to it. Like, if you think I've said something wrong that's allegedly upset you, then that's fine. I'll have a chat with you. But have a little think about why you want to pull me up. If I spoke like this and was like, oh yeah, so I think this, and would I be making an important point in your opinion if I had a different accent? Have a little think about that. Anyway.
Love it.
Next up on the big questions.
You should... what's that thing that fucking guy, Terry something, that Manchester guy who's just opinions. Terry Christian?
Oh yeah, Terry Christian, yeah. He used to be on the Word, charts like that. Yeah.
You need to have a Rachel Fairburn presenting the Word. I'd watch that.
God, that was... I used to watch that as a very young teenager. You stay up on a Friday night to watch it. It was like... for anyone who doesn't know, it was like a 90s... Oasis's very first TV appearance was on that. It was like a 90s pop culture, is that the right word? Term show. It had horrible things in it, like I'd do anything to get on TV, and I will never forget a man eating pews off a cracker.
That is fucking foul. Yeah, it's sort of a bit Euro trashy, but also a bit like magazine show.
Yeah.
I imagine if it came back, the sort of tenets of it, and now they've sort of baked into middle age, the word would be something transphobic.
The word was Terry Christian, Danny Bear. Who else used to... Danny Bear, do you remember her? Anyway, we must get on with this, because I feel like I've ranted enough. Where are we up to? Oh, yeah. So
1977, December
the 16th, 1977, near Christmas, horrible. This was Georgia Wickstead, who was 27 years old. She was a nurse. And at this point, we think he's breaking into people's houses, don't we? That's
Yes.
Really horrible. Like, to me, he's a mixture of... It's like BTK. It's like the Golden State Killer. He's got all these horrible elements. There's got to be a psychological... I mean, imagine somebody who's a professional could do a study on why there was so many killers, like sexual sadists and, around this time in history in America.
All of these crimes are happening around the time the Vietnam War ended, so it could be just a load of guys with... Although he wasn't in the war, he was kicked out of the army fast. There goes my theory. I was going to try and give them some sort of, empathy there and be like, it could be PTSD, but, not if he worked in a fucking office for 2 months.
Yeah, I had to do a bit of admin and I'm furious at the world.
And don't message me if you worked in a toxic workplace and you worked in an office and you have PTSD. Obviously, that is not aimed at you. So, Georgia Wickstead
also,
was a nurse.
I have to do... let me just get this out there while I'm on one. What people have to remember about this podcast is it is an entertainment podcast, and we are comedians, And I think people sometimes expect a little bit too much from us. Like, we're respectful, we do this, we enjoy doing it and all the rest of it. We're very respectful about what the subject matter that we're talking about. But I think people need to chill the fuck out sometimes. It's like, not everything that he said needs to be picked apart, or not every joke that he said, because this is where you suck the fun out of everything. Sometimes it's like, I'm fully aware of something that I'm talking about, but I'm being bloody awkward. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know the truth about something.
There's a comedic angle
but then the comedic angle is me being a knobhead.
No, you're totally right. And also I think it's, my partner always says that everyone's the main character of their own story. So people can't, like, they'll hear things and be like, that's about me, or that relates to something about me.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not. It's us being irreverent. But you're the main character of your story, so you can't see outside of yourself.
When you said that your partner said everyone's the main character in their own story, I imagined him walking into your living room wearing like a big Shakespearean outfit.
Like a Jacobean ruff and nothing else. So, Georgia Wickstead, she was a nurse at the Centinela Hospital, and her body was found in her apartment. This is the first sort of noted home invasion of his. She had been sexually assaulted and bludgeoned, and she'd been strangled with her tights. So this is now a really established MO. It's so sad. She's, working hard as a nurse. Also, as a teenager, she had survived cancer. She'd like, I don't know, you're not meant to use language like this, but she'd like beaten cancer, and then she gets fucking killed at 27 by some fucking maniac. It's just
I hate shit like that.
It's just tragic.
There was a hammer left at the scene as well for this one, which he didn't do for any of the others, I don't think, did he? This was quite a...
Hammers as well. Stop fucking letting men in the 70s have hammers. Like, there you go. There's a rule I'd retrospectively enforce. Men can't have hammers in the 70s.
They can't buy hammers.
If you got flares, you can't have a hammer. That's the rule.
If you've ever listened to disco music, you're not allowed to have a hammer.
If you freely use the P word as a racial slur, you can't have a hammer. Del Boy, you're not allowed one.
Charlotte Lamb was the next victim. She was 32 years old.
Charlotte is killed in 1978, but earlier in 1978, Rodney Alcala appears on The Dating Game as Bachelor Number 1. Now, you can go and watch this clip on YouTube of his appearance. So what they've done is they've sort of spliced all his answers together, and obviously he comes across as a real sort of creep in it. But I would say that if you splice together any of the answers from Blind Date or The Dating Game, and then went, this person's a murderer, it would all stack up.
Yeah.
I would say that in Rodney's defence. But he is very creepy. The girl who's a contestant is an actor who actually picks him, and then they win private tennis lessons and like tennis gear together, and she doesn't go.
I love that, private tennis lessons, as if tennis is something to be ashamed of.
It fucking is.
You have to play tennis in private for everybody's benefit.
God, if there's anything that, like, I think tennis and skiing and polo probably are two of the like sports that really fucking signal you've got some money. And that sounds mad, right? Because I grew up with ponies, but like you do see people like ragging around on council estates in Ireland and South Wales on a horse. Do you know what I mean? Like that does exist, but like you don't see anyone having like a fucking, someone 15 love on it. Like that just doesn't happen. Like it just feels like a sport that doesn't really ever permeate past the middle classes.
I do remember at school we did have tennis for a while, and the teachers expected us to buy a tennis racket, and one was like, no, the school can lend you a tennis racket. When are you going to need a tennis racket? It's like absolutely fair, in my opinion. Like, I think I used it twice.
All the little cunts in my primary school, because it was private, when tennis season came around, when Wimbledon was on, would all come in with fucking tennis rackets and be playing it at break time. And I remember being like, Mum, Dad, can I have a tennis? Everyone else got a tennis racket. And my dad's like, yeah, fine. And he went to a car boot sale and got me a wooden one. So everyone else had these, like proper lightweight, the
Slazenger. Yeah.
And I had a wooden tennis racket, which is only good for pretending it's a guitar in the playground. But just, little things like that where you're looking at it and you're like, he's gone to the trouble of finding you. And I was like, thanks, Dad. And you're also looking at the thing that is going to get you, not bullied, but, like, okay, well, everyone's going to go, why is yours wooden for the next 4 days? And then you're going to have to pretend that you keep forgetting it to stop the questions.
Yeah, horrible situation. I mean, my mum just took no shit with it. You're not having a tennis racket. Right, okay, fair enough. Absolutely fair.
So on this dating game, they win these private tennis lessons. They never go on a date because she says he really creeped me out backstage and I just didn't want to see him again. How fucking, like, she's got a good spider sense there, isn't she?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that happens now, though, unfortunately, is there's articles that are like, did Rodney Alcala do these murders because he was turned down on the dating game? It's like, no, he was doing it before. Like, let's not blame the woman.
Yeah, how is a woman who meets him for half an hour suddenly responsible for a man who's been killing before and after he met her? God, the fucking mental gymnastics people will go to make this someone else's fault, other than the fucking serial rapist murderer who carries a hammer around, for fuck's sake. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. It's always our fault. She didn't smile. She didn't smile when he said, cheer up, love. So therefore, he went on a killing spree.
The questions are classic, like, shitty innuendos, and they do some really weird act out at some time when she's like, pretends, she's like, I like improv, or I like acting. If I was playing the part of what would you, and he pretends to be like a dirty old man, and she's like,
oh God.
Bachelor number 1, which do you prefer, daytime or nighttime? And he very creepily says, like, nighttime, all the best things happen in the nighttime, which also gets, like, played so much as in, like, proof that he's a serial killer. Yeah. Or an insomniac. Like, it's not really conclusive proof of anything. He comes over as creepy, but also so does everyone else on the show. Like, no one comes over normal.
Speaking of insomniacs, can I just say this as well? I sympathise with anyone that has insomnia. I've had it myself. But there is nothing more annoying than speaking to someone who's got insomnia the day after they've had a good sleep. It is
really
fucking irritating. It's like, oh great, you're feeling fresh today, so now we've all got to deal with you. I prefer you when you're tired. Do you know what I mean?
I know who this is aimed at, and it feels wholly unfair.
It's everybody that's like this, you know, miserable. Oh, I'm having a terrible time. Oh, you're up early now, are you? Somebody's fresh. Now we've got to listen to everything that you enjoy. I'm glad you're happy, but I've been happy for weeks.
Fucking hell. The simmering intolerance in what you're saying is absolutely hilarious. You're basically someone with a medical condition which is torturous. It's literally what they do to torture people, is deprive them of sleep.
Listen, I've had insomnia. I've suffered insomnia myself. I went through a phase of, you know, a good couple of months of having it, and, you know, a couple of days being awake. Horrible. But you know what? I just got on with it. And I didn't expect celebrating when I'd had a good night's sleep.
Oh my God.
Oh, woo. Great. Good for you. Woo.
You fucking piece of work.
Horrible,
slow clapping someone having a fucking lion. Jesus Christ.
Whoop-de-doo. Wow. 8 hours. Woo.
You horrible piece of shit.
Hey, don't any insomniacs, don't at me. I know you've got the time, but don't bother.
You fucking horror show.
I'm really mean today. I don't know what's wrong with me today.
Yeah, you've riled yourself up. Did you not get a good night's sleep?
I did, actually. I slept very well. I often do.
Do you know why it is, Rachel? Because I think you get everything off your chest.
No, this is it. Like, don't let it fester. Get it out there. Get these things off your chest and, you know, sleep like a baby.
So, June 24th, 1978 is one of his next murders. Charlotte Lamb. Mm-hmm. So tell us about Charlotte.
She was 32 years old. She was a legal secretary who lived in Santa Monica. And she lived in a big apartment block. And this is really horrible. She lives in a place called El Segundo. Now, she was found in the laundry room of the apartment. So I guess, you know, the laundry room's like the shared room where you go... Oh, obviously, it's self-explanatory. I don't know why I'm saying it.
Yeah, I don't know why you're... Yeah.
I don't know why I'm engaging in this.
Explain to us what an apartment is as well, Rachel.
It's a thing where people live... It's like a burrow, but for humans. So she was found in the laundry room, which is obviously a communal area for the apartments, and she'd been strangled with a shoelace, which is awful. I mean, horrible. Yeah. Even just the thought of that is just horrific. The sad thing I find as well about this is when she'd been found, she was found face down, and when the picture of her was released, nobody in the building had ever said they'd seen her.
Yeah. And Charlotte was known as Shug to her family. So as a result, that no one had seen her, they didn't really know much about her or who she was. Her family were told weeks after her death about it. Weeks. And then one of the things they do find is that Charlotte was missing an earring. So she only had one of the pair on. And this earring becomes important to the case. And missing earrings become a common theme.
Yeah.
So June 14th, 1979 is his next murder. But I just don't think there was a year between the murders. I think there was other stuff going on. This is Jill Parento, who's 21. Again, she was sexually assaulted. And now she was murdered after a break-in at her home. So she'd been at the Handlebar Saloon with her pals, and Alcala had come over. But this is much, much later that they've sort of put the pieces together. Like, oh yeah, this guy with curly hair came over, but he didn't make much of an impression. I think he tried to chat up her and her mates, but, you know, like nothing really stuck. So they didn't even, when they were talking to the police, they didn't even really recall him until they showed them a picture. And they were like, oh yeah, he came up to us that night in the bar. So he must have followed her home and then broken into her house. And in fact, he cut himself crawling through the window and left his blood there. They did a test on it and there was a blood match. So he was a suspect, but he was dismissed. They're close to him a lot of times. Like, you know, they've got a blood match on him.
How was he dismissed from that?
I don't know. Well, because I don't think DNA was... It could tell you it was the same blood type, but not that it was the same blood, right? So if he's got an alibi, then fine. And, you know, he's talked himself about being the fucking hillside strangler. You know, like, he's got experience, at least, of speaking to police officers and you know, with his time in prison as well. So he wheedles out of it a few times.
Yeah.
The next one is just a few days later, which is why I don't believe there was a year between the murders. So the June 20th, 1979, this is Robin Samso, and this is sort of the crime that kind of leads to his capture. Now, when we do the third part and we do his trial, I think we're going to go back and recap some murders that we might not have covered because loads of them were solved much later, as in like 2010, 2016.
Yeah.
Robin Samso was only 12 years old, wasn't she?
Yeah. She was a 12-year-old girl on her way to a ballet class, and she was riding a bike, wasn't she? I think it was when she was on her way to ballet class, she met one of her friends and they just went down to the beach for a little bit. I mean, it sounds like a lovely life that she was living, you know, on a bike outside, going to the beach in the summer, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like quite a safe area, the kids just, you know, getting on with it. He approaches her and a friend on the beach and says, oh, I'm a photographer, can I take you a picture? And, you know, them being kids were like, yeah, okay. And another adult sees this going on and approaches them and says, what's going on here? Which is good and right. And he sort of gets a bit antsy about it. And Robin says, look, I've got to go anyway. I've got a ballet class. So off she goes, gets on a bike again and cycles off and leaves a friend. And he later abducts her, he follows her, and he kills her. And her body was found 12 days later. Really brutal, this. Now, I hate having to say this, but I think it's important to say it to show what a horrible person, what an absolute prick he was. She was headless when she was found, and all her teeth had been cracked. So these
Fucking
are brutal murders.
Yeah.
And also, he's quite emboldened, I think, because to be seen on the beach with this girl and then follow her, abduct her and kill her when he's been seen in public, as you say, he's probably done more and he's probably just getting away with it all the time.
Absolutely. Well, what happens is the police make a sketch based on the witness seeing him with the, you know, and so it's a very distinct looking face and he's got this curly hair. So he gets identified from this witness's sketch and he gets arrested on July 24th, 1979. So at the time, he's a largely unemployed photographer, and he's actually arrested in Monterey Park in his parents' home. I don't know if he was living with them at the time or whether he just happened to be at his parents' house. And when they arrested him, one of the things they find, and this is how we're going to end the episode, is that he owns a locker, a storage locker. And when they go to it and they open it up, they find lots of things in there, lots of photos of women and lots of earrings. And a pair of earrings in a bag belonged to Robin. They were basically what she was wearing when she was on her way to a ballet class. They were never found. So that is what links him directly to Robin.
And this locker was in Seattle.
Yes.
So it was
he's been busy.
hundreds of miles away.
This was his, to quote BTK, motherlode.
Yes.
It was basically his trophy thing in Seattle. So that is where we'll go up to, because the locker, it contains lots of stuff that is still sort of ongoing. Trying to deal with him, and there's lots to talk about in the trials, because he's convicted 3 times. Things keep getting overturned.
Cannot wait.
Well, this is the thing is very sad for Robin's family, is that they had to sit through 3 different trials because it kept getting overturned for like technical things.
Horrible.
Really horrible. Really horrible. So that is part 2 of Rodney Alcala. I'm hoping we can get... I've got a really quiet week this week, so I think I've got a full day off on Friday. So we could record the next episode then and get out quick.
Whack it out. Perfect.
Great. So that has been part 2 of the Dating Game Killer. Thank you so much for listening. Anything else we need to say?
Nothing. Just thanks for listening. That's it really, isn't it? Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.